Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Saturday, August 23rd. Around 1:30 in the afternoon, Eastern Daylight Time. Now, I've been absent here a little longer than usual because, quite honestly, on the 21st, which would have been, Thursday, I had a very disorienting day. I woke up at 1:30 in the morning, didn't get back to sleep, and as the day progressed, it just got worse and worse and worse. I knew where I was. My mentation was clear, but I had this increasing feeling of having an out-of-body experience almost. It was very odd. Since I had the great bludgeoning down sort of stroke of August 16th, 2011, this has happened from time to time, but it was particularly bad on the 21st. I got to the point where the soles of my feet were so numb I had to look down while I walked to see where my feet were, But then yesterday, got up, everything was fine. I think the 10 hours of sleep I got the night of, preceding yesterday was helped, but it was odd. So I've been absent from y'all. Now, today I want to tell you about, first I want to remark that one of the sort of the giants of local Central Ohio surgery, who was a vascular surgeon, died here this week. He was 80, and I had been on his service as a first-year surgical resident, and I subsequently did many anesthetics on his patients with him in the room, obviously, when I was an anesthesia resident, and then a brief time when I was on faculty at Ohio State. And he was a really good guy, and he was a good surgeon. He was a good surgeon, and he was a vascular surgeon of what I suppose you'd call him the old school. He was sort of like of the DeBakey school, although maybe a little bit after DeBakey in the sense of, but he had a very basic approach to vascular surgery. It's like it's all plumbing, and there's certain things you can fix and certain things you can't fix. And for example, nowadays it's very common to go down and do these very extended procedures on the distal lower extremity. And they try to sew these 1.5 millimeter arteries together and things, and try to fish clots out of them. And at this stage of the game, and this was in 1975, 76, 78 to 78, essentially, if you couldn't get it out on the first pass, and then you had to be brought back, you got your leg cut off. It was either a BK below knee or AK above knee. But there really wasn't this, extended bring back stuff that goes on today, where you keep these people in the hospital for actually sometimes months at a time, trying to salvage something that really isn't salvageable. Now, admittedly, occasionally they do save one. No question about it. No question about it. But, you know, and it's really the patient's choice. Nowadays, it's the patient's choice. How much do you want to go through? Some people are willing to go through all that. Others say, no, 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 just take the thing off so I can get back out and walk around, and, or at least if they can't get a prosthesis, I can wheelchair around, be mobile, and be out, you know, out of the pest house. So it was a different time, and boy, he was fun to work with. First time I remember working with him as a resident, first-year resident. It was on a elective abdominal aortic aneurysm, and obviously I'd read about these things, and I was just amazed at the sheer violence of that procedure. And just the sheer amount of bloodiness of it. It was great. We're all in there helping, holding things, exposing things. You got to have exposure for this stuff. Well, anyway, he died, and he's going to be missed. He pulled a lot of people's ashes out of the fire when they came in with a ruptured aneurysm. And he was a lot of fun to work with, a lot of fun to make rounds with. Patients loved him. The male patients especially loved him because he always made sure that they were given actual pants to wear. You know, like pajama bottom pants to wear. Rather than these gowns that flapped open in the back, letting their behinds hang out in the breeze, you know. So if you cover up a man's behind, he said it a little more earthily than that. He'll get out of bed and walk around, but if he won't, if you've got this thing where he's flapping around in the breeze out there, he ain't going to get out and walk around. And of course, the first thing you want, at least by the second day after surgery, you want these guys up walking around. You know, you got to get them out of bed, get them moving, because if they don't, if they just lie there, they're going to toad out and die. And you never want to toad out and die. You might die anyway, but you don't want to do it as a toad, that's for sure. So he's being buried today down in Circleville, Ohio. God bless him and his family. It was good to know him, good to be around him. Now, another story from when I was on that service. We had, this was when I was a first-year resident. I was on the service, and you know, as I said, I mean, there were a certain number of folks that got their legs amputated, and so every Tuesday morning we'd make what we called stump rounds. And what you do, and we try to do this relatively early, but hell, we did everything early in the morning, because after that, then we went down to the operating room. Well, some of us did. Some of us stayed on the floor and took care of things that we found on rounds, particularly stump rounds. And we'd have the nurses go collect the patients out of their rooms, and then do the daily weights, and then put them in a wheelchair and wheel them down in front of us, and then unwrap the stumps so we could assess the wound, and the wounds that needed things tended to, that went on a list, and I took care of them the rest of the day. Well, better part of the day. But in general, the patients liked it because, first of all, you're paying attention to them. You're actually paying attention to the patient and looking at what's wrong with the patient. Patients like that. And, you know, and plus everybody got to see what the situation was with the patient, and then, you know, presumably most of the people had been in the operating room when this was done, and a number of us got to actually do some of these things. I myself got to do an AK and a BK when I was a first-year resident, under supervision, of course, but I basically got to do the entire case. And oh, it was great. Well, not for the patient. Well, it was great for the patient because, you know, the patient was going to have a dead leg anyway. But so we made stump rounds, and you know, and we actually got, so we called the 6th Center, which was the Vascular Surgical Ward at the time, Stump City. And of course, then there were the usual songs like Stump City, Stump City, Stump City. Medicine, huh? Surgery, huh? Well, that might give you all a bit to think about. Obviously, the politically correct tenor of the times is such that nowadays we probably couldn't talk about it. It might still happen, but we certainly couldn't talk about it. Alrighty now, bye-bye, YouTubers. Tomorrow I read in church. Maybe we'll hear something about that tomorrow. Maybe not. Depends on if anything noteworthy happens. Alright, bye-bye. Oh look, there's my spare on the table.